Picture a Roman legionary. The image that instantly comes to mind is a soldier hurling a heavy javelin, drawing a short blade, and charging forward behind a massive shield. That blade is the gladius. It is the weapon we associate most closely with the height of the Roman Empire and brutal close-quarters combat. But long before Rome became an empire defined by close-range sword work, its army relied on something entirely different. This is the hasta, a plain 2.5-meter wooden thrusting pole tipped with an iron head. It was the true foundational weapon of early Roman infantry. To understand how Rome engineered its legendary military discipline, we have to look past the glamorous sword and examine how this simple wooden pole physically shaped their tactical DNA. The primary tactical value of the hasta is reach. A spear lets a soldier command the space far in front of his body. An opponent with a shorter blade must navigate past that extended iron point before attempting a strike. This extended reach dictates how men behave. A single, isolated spear can be flanked, but when soldiers stand shoulder to shoulder, those individual radii overlap into an impenetrable, uniform barrier. Rome's earliest citizen soldiers fought exactly like this. Property-owning men formed up in dense, tightly ordered phalanxes, using large shields and spear points to protect the man standing right next to them. We can see this early fighting style preserved in stone, where Roman troops are depicted in tightly packed formations with massive overlapping shields. A tightly packed spear line does not require every man to be an individual champion. It demands collective steadiness and nerve. The hasta forced men to hold the line together, physically engineering Roman discipline long before the classic legion ever existed. If the rigid spear wall was so highly effective at building a disciplined army, why did Rome eventually abandon it as their primary weapon? The answer lies in geography. As Rome expanded its borders, the army found itself fighting neighboring Italian peoples across broken, uneven terrain. A solid, tightly packed phalanx only works on flat ground. When a rigid line marches over a steep hill or a rocky valley, the formation fractures. The shields separate, and fatal gaps open up in the defensive wall. To survive, Rome adapted. They developed the manipular legion, a highly flexible system of smaller, independently moving units. Instead of holding a static line, these soldiers threw heavy javelins, called pila, to aggressively disrupt the enemy right before physical contact. Once the enemy formation was disrupted, the Roman soldiers charged in. In the chaotic, close-quarters fighting that followed, the sheer size of the rectangular scutum shield and the quick thrusts of the gladius became highly lethal. Yet the older tactical identity survived in the language. Even after these young frontline troops traded their long thrusting poles for swords and javelins, they were still officially called the hastati, literally the spearmen. Rome discarded the spear wall in the front lines because the environment demanded it. They turned their infantry from static defenders into adaptable, aggressive disruptors. But Rome did not throw the hasta away completely. Instead, they moved it to the very back of the army, treating it as a calculated failsafe. This was the realm of the triarii. These were the oldest, most experienced veterans in the legion. They formed the third line of defense, they were fewer in number, and they still carried the long thrusting spear. Imagine the psychological shock for an enemy force. If they exhausted themselves hacking through 2 entire lines of swordsmen, the reward was crashing into a fresh, highly disciplined wall of iron points. This created a famous Roman proverb, "It has come to the triarii." It meant a battle had deteriorated into a severe crisis, and only the absolute last line of defense could stabilize it. In the hands of these veterans, the spear was an anchor. It was the visible, physical edge of the Roman army's sheer refusal to collapse. Off the battlefield, the hasta took on an entirely new life. It transcended its wooden shaft and iron point to become a potent symbol of legal authority, public order, and military honor in Roman society. The state created the hasta pura, the pure spear, a non-combat spear awarded to soldiers as one of Rome's highest military decorations for distinguished service. The Romans were completely unsentimental about how they fought. They held no blinding loyalty to a specific weapon out of tradition. Their only loyalty was to adaptation and whatever tool made their formations victorious. Because of that adaptability, the spear never left. It remained the weapon of the cavalry, and as the threats to the later Roman Empire changed, long-reach polearms returned heavily to the infantry lines. The cinematic image of the sword and shield will always define the Roman legionary. The gladius certainly carved out the borders of the empire.